Hola a todos, welcome to this video that serves as a resource for new Auxiliares de Conversación, or English Language and Culture Assistance in Spain. Today we're going to be talking about how to get your student visa, updated processes as of 2023, kind of how to go about it, things to keep in mind, timelines, costs, etc. Initially, this was a live event. We actually have another one coming up on June 4th, 2023, so if you are still in the running, go ahead and register for our event for that. It's going to be held over Zoom where you can ask live questions. Feel free to introduce yourself anyways in the comments of this video, giving us your name, where you're from, which aux program you're a part of, the regions that you applied for or that you eventually ended up in, whether you're TEFL certified, and if you speak Spanish. Just a little disclaimer, I'm not a representative of embassies and I'm not a representative of any of the aux programs. I'm just another aux who saw a kind of lack of resources available and want to give my expertise to those who could use it to kind of help them out in the future. But if you need professional advice, either from an embassy, a consulate, your aux program, if you don't know something, definitely reach out to them. They're there to help you and they know a lot more about this process than even I do. So yeah, never be afraid to ask for help, you know? Today we're going to go over basic requirements, so all the documents that you'll need for your visa, the consulate, so information about which consulate you'll be applying to, a timeline, and kind of what to keep in mind between when you apply and when you actually arrive in Spain, the cost of the visa, or kind of a potential cost analysis, and in the normal session, questions. Since this is a recorded one, we're going to skip over that, okay? If you have any questions during this slideshow, feel free to put them in the comments down below, and I'll try to get to them as soon as possible. You will apply for a long-term student visa as an auxiliar de conversación. This is a 6-month visa or over 180 days. You can start collecting your documents as soon as possible and try to submit them fairly early, as the visa processing times can vary and take a while. When you do apply for your visa, choose the multi-entry visa option so that you can go in and out of Spain as you need. It doesn't affect how fast the visa is processed, but it's best to have that option to be able to leave and come back to Spain. So these are the documents that you will need for your visa application. This information is also available on the Consulate of Spain website. Regardless of whatever consulate you are going to, they will have these general documents as well as possibly specific requirements to that consulate. We have the visa application form, the visa application fee of $160 via money order to the Consulate General of Spain, your certificate of admission or letter of appointment, which is known as your carta de nombramiento, your proof of financial means, which is also really your carta de nombramiento, your proof of insurance, a medical certificate, your federal background check and apostille, possibly notarized and translated, your passport, which should be valid for at least 3 months past your program end date, a proof of residency to declare that you are going to the correct consulate, a passport photo, and some possible different requirements based on the consulate. Could be self-addressed return envelopes for if you mail in your visa application, translations, notarizations, proof of travel, proof of your immigration status if you're not a US citizen, as well as copies or originals of any of the given things above. The most straightforward part of the visa process is the application form and fee. So the application form is available on the consulate website for you to print. You will then attach your passport photo to the form. Your fee can be paid via money order. It's $160 as of 2023, and this can be done at your bank or credit union, the United States Postal Service. Any of those offices will allow you to do a money order. Walmart does money orders, Western Union, and it's paid to the Consulate General of Spain. This is an example of what that's going to look like. You might have to pay a nominal fee for doing a money order. This year, for orders under a certain amount, it's $175. Next is your carta de nombramiento. It'll state your affiliation, which program you're doing, the duration, how long you are going to be doing that, your school assignment, so where you're working, and your stipend and compensation package, so how much you're being paid, and potentially if you'll be enrolled for things like Social Security, insurance, etc. Okay, so we're going to look at a few examples. First, we have an example carta from NALCAP, which is the Ministry of Education's program, and this is specifically for the community of Madrid. It has our applicant info, so it's got my name, my passport number, my nationality, my inscrita number, which is the number that you receive when you apply for NALCAP. It's which number in the queue your application is. Since I applied with CIEE, that's what I had. Your school information is also on that letter, as well as the duration of the program from which date to which date, right here on this line, and the compensation that you'll be receiving. In this case, I was paid 1,000 euros per month. Another NALCAP letter, so Ministry of Education again, but this time with the Junta de Andalucía. So this is a different autonomous region. Again, we have the same things, the applicant info, name, passport, nationality, inscrita number, the duration of the program, the compensation, the school info, but as you can see, it's formatted just slightly differently. Here's an example of a private program. So this is BEDA, which is Escuelas Católicas de Madrid, and it's also associated with a university. So this is Universidad Pontificia Comillas. So if you're with something like Instituto Franklin, which is associated with Alcalá de Henares, you'll also get something from that specific university. Again, we have the applicant info, name, passport, nationality, and other things. You have the duration of the program, the compensation, but the weird thing about this carta is that it is 3 pages long because of the university affiliation, because there is an additional class that I was enrolled in. In addition to that, a kind of breakdown of the insurance and social security that I would be a part of. Moving on, your proof of financial means. When you apply for a student visa in Spain, you need to prove that you have at least $700 per month, either that you've already saved or that you will receive. Your carta de nombramiento should suffice for both the letter of appointment and your proof of financial means, because in that letter of appointment, in that carta de nombramiento, you are given your compensation package. So it states, oh, this person's going to make 800 euros a month. This person's going to make 1,000 euros a month, right? So that should suffice as your proof of financial means. The only reason you would need to provide a separate proof of financial means is if you're bringing a dependent. Any questions you might have about financial dependents, family members, partners, can be answered on your consulate's website. You need to have private or public insurance that provides coverage in Spain while you're there, right? Most AUX programs provide you with an insurance policy already, and they may enroll you for Social Security in Spain, in which case you'll be covered by the public healthcare system, and you can apply once you're there. If you wanted to, you could also opt to buy yourself a Spanish insurance policy. They're fairly affordable. I think they're around 40 euros a month for the most basic plan. A lot of people do this, especially if they're going to be coming early over summer. The past 2 years, I was with the AUX programs. I had Sanitas for 1 year, and I was also provided with an insurance policy by CIEE the year before. Participants in NALCAP this year had a CISA as well. Just to kind of give you an idea of insurance companies in Spain, Sanitas is very popular, Adeslas, Asisa, as we said. Speaking of insurance, you'll need a medical certificate in your visa application. This can be dated no earlier than 3 months before your application date, so just keep that in mind. It must be issued by an MD or DO. Unfortunately, letters from certified nurse practitioners will not suffice. I learned this the hard way. This document can be on an official letterhead. It must be signed and stamped. Both of those need to be done. Additionally, it may need to be notarized and translated depending on your consulate. Your consulate should have an example document available to be downloaded from their website. This is the one that was given to us. This medical certificate certifies that blah, 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 blah. You guys can read it yourself. This particular phrase has to do with highly transmissible diseases that could interfere with your health or the health of others while traveling. So as long as you are fit to travel and complete your duties as a teacher, that's really all your medical certificate needs to say. In addition to a medical background, you'll also need a criminal background check. It must be issued within 5 months of your application date. So this is typically the document that I tell people to start first. For this background check, your fingerprints can be done yourself, or you print out a template and do your fingerprints. You can go to a channeler or kind of a middleman who takes your fingerprints for you, sends it to the FBI, handles all the documents. Or you can schedule it on the FBI website and get your fingerprints done digitally at post office locations. I would recommend this step. It was very easy for me to do, and I received my results back fairly quickly compared to my friends who printed it out and did it themselves, or even use a channeler. The fee for this is $50 and $18 for the FBI. So I think one of that is for the digital fingerprinting service itself, and then the other is just for the administrative fee. It can be higher for channelers as they are middlemen. So once you get it, you'll receive a digital copy. So this is just an example of that. And you'll also receive the physical copy in the mail. In my case, it says a search of the fingerprints provided by this individual has revealed no prior arrest data at the FBI. This does not preclude further criminal history at state or local level. If you do have a criminal history, you might want to check with your consulate just to see if you're even eligible, because this is a bit of a pricey process, and if you come across complications during your visa application, it can make the processing time higher. once you've received that background check, you will need to submit it again to the U.S. Department of State. So going back, this is issued by the U.S. Department of Justice. Now we're submitting that document to the U.S. Department of State. You need to do this as soon as possible. This process can take up to 8 weeks and even longer. So this is kind of the most time-consuming part of the visa process. So these are the required documents that you need to send to the U.S. Department of State. You need a federal or state background check. That FBI check will suffice. You need a request for authentication service form, which is available to print out on the U.S. Department of State website. You need a $20 money order as of 2023, which will be made out to the U.S. Department of State. And if you've already done the money order for your visa, then you'll be able to do the money order for the U.S. Department of State. And a self-addressed prepaid USPS priority mail envelope so they can send it right back to you. You get this document with a cover page saying Department of Justice, blah, 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 and you get this little thing in the corner securing the apostille to the document. Keep this entire document intact. Don't remove the little divot at the top. You'll need it for when you submit your visa. This is what the apostille actually looks like over here on the right. It'll just say, we've certified that this document is correct. There you go. Of course, you'll need your passport because in order to travel to another country, in order to be issued a visa, you need a passport. So if you haven't yet gotten your passport, go ahead and do that now. Processing times in the States are usually pretty high, especially over summer and high travel times. Also, ensure the validity of your passport is through 3 months after your program end date. 90 days. So if your program end date is June 2024, make sure your passport is valid through September 2024. Keep in mind that you will need to submit your original passport, not a copy, to your consulate. But you cannot travel internationally while your visa is in process. You'll need to supply an ID card that serves as a proof of residency. You just need to provide something that shows that you're within the consulate's jurisdiction. So this can be a driver's license, state ID, or university student ID. Additionally, you've got other requirements based on your consulate. So again, here's that checklist. Feel free to take a screenshot and keep it for your records. All right, moving on, we're gonna talk about consulates. So as you can see, we've got all these different color blocks. That is because each consulate only deals with certain areas and territories of the States. So there's one in Miami, one in Houston, Los Angeles and San Francisco, New York, Washington, D.C., Boston, and Chicago. There's also one in San Juan. Based on where you are living in X state or something, you'll be going to the consulate that's associated. Here's a little bit of a breakdown based on which states are included for each consulate, and San Francisco and Los Angeles, which counties are for which consulate. Your consulate determines your requirements. So the requirements for Chicago might be different from the requirements for Miami. The method of submission and pickup for each consulate might be different from one another. So for example, you might mail in your visa at one consulate, but have to physically go there for another. Not all your consulates operate together. To get updates on processing times, you can't call the Miami consulate to know how your visa application is going in Chicago, right? You'll need to stay within your jurisdiction and compare with others that have submitted to the same consulate. Some consulates don't issue número de identidad de extranjeros. So this is something that you'll need while you're in Spain, but just be aware that sometimes your visa is issued without that number. If you need more information, always check the consulate website. You can find this on the Spanish Exteriores website. Each individual consulate also has its own website, which is pretty helpful. Another note as well, that even if your consulate is located states away, sometimes there are regional or city offices of the embassies and consulates, which I found really helpful. Now that you know what to do for your visa and which consulate to submit to, now we're going to go over the timeline and kind of an idea of how much time it's going to take you to do everything, when you should be submitting, when you should be working on things. The end of the 2023-24 application period for most programs was in April. I would recommend that after you've submitted your application, you just go ahead and apply for your passport if you have not yet already. As well, start by requesting your FBI background check sometime in between April and May, and that process will take about 2 weeks. And as soon as you receive that, submit it to the U.S. Department of State to be apostilled. Sometime between late April all the way into September, you'll be receiving your carta de nombramiento or your letter of appointment. Sometime in July, hopefully, or 8 weeks after you've submitted your background check to be apostilled, you'll receive that back from the Department of State. And hopefully by that time, you'll also have gotten all the other documents together at which time you can submit your visa application to your consulate. I recommend doing this no later than the end of July because visas can take 4 to 6 weeks to process. Mine actually took around 8 weeks, and I'd say err on the side of caution. After you've received your visa, book travel, arrive sometime in September so you have a little bit of time to acclimate to Spain. You have to do some paperwork, you have to make a bank account, search for an apartment, right? In that time, you're also going to contact your school because they don't go back into session until September, and sometimes if you contact them before that, you're not going to get a response. And then October 1st, or the beginning of October, is usually every Aux's first day of school. So that is a 7-month timeline, but it kind of gives you an idea of how long this process is, how many different moving parts you kind of have to keep in mind, and all of that stuff going on. Here is a written timeline for you guys. So it's very possible that this process will not be very linear. The one document that you cannot do yourself, that you will have to wait for because it is given to you, you can't really do anything to speed it up, is the Carta de Nombramiento. You just have to wait. Do not travel to Spain if you are still waiting on your carta. The second document that can be delayed is your apostille. In the case of a delay, so if your apostille is taking longer than 8 weeks for the Department of State to process, know that you can call your state representative's office and ask them to expedite it. I have not had to use this method before, but some people have told me that it's worked for them. Finally, your visa itself might be delayed. There's thousands of Auxes moving to Spain alone, in addition to workers and students. So if your visa is delayed, what do you do? If it is taking longer than 6 weeks, call or email them to check on progress and just make sure that you have all the information up to date. Some consulates also will issue a number by which you can track the process of your visa. I think San Francisco does this for you, so you'll be up to date on where your visa is at any given moment in time. If your visa takes longer than September to arrive, right? So if you're still waiting on your visa and the school year has already started, you need to contact your school. Say that you still want to work with them, but you're still waiting on a visa delay. Do your best to keep in contact with your school and with the ministry or whichever program you're participating in to update them on your visa status. And once again, do not travel to Spain without your visa. It is not worth it, it's reckless, and it wastes time and money. In addition to your time commitment, you'll also probably have a bit of a financial commitment to this visa. My visa in 2021 cost $626.27, roughly. So here's a breakdown. I have the application fee, of course, which is $160. My medical certificate of good health with all of my insurance, co-pays, and everything was $194. Apostille, which also had to be translated and notarized, came around to $186.90. My passport photo, for some reason, was $16.12. Any other additional fees or documents were $69.25. Beginning with the medical certificate of good health, because this was by far the most expensive part of my visa, I had to make a few appointments. All around, the co-pays and everything turned out to be $194. First appointment with my primary care doctor, who then ran some labs. I then went to an urgent care to see an alternative physician that I've been seeing for a while, a certified nurse practitioner. That document did not count because she is not an MD or DO. Do be aware if you have any chronic illnesses, if you need to see specialists, if you need to travel, this expense may be higher or lower. If you are in perfectly good health, you know your primary care physician really well, good for you, this expense might be much lower. The next biggest expense was the apostille. The apostille obviously is your background check and apostille together. FBI fingerprinting, which I did at the US Postal Service, and identity history summary report. Fee for the apostille was $8 at the time, and the apostille form shipping to and from the US Department of State came around to $15.90. After I received that apostille back, I had to pay $95 for translation and notarization from a verified translator, and I think I did it on one of those 72-hour turnaround services because I was getting up on the deadline of submitting my visa, so that rush service might be part of it. But all in all, this document came out to $186.90, so almost $200 on this singular document alone. It's literally 3 pages, but super expensive. And additional expenses. Some nominal fees for money orders. Did Priority Mail Express for my visa instead of just sending Priority Mail, so that's a little bit more expensive than it might have been. I also had to pick up my visa in person from Miami. So again, I do live in Tampa. I'm within the state, so it was about a 4-hour drive. Round trip cost of gas was $35, and the parking fee in Coral Gables was $6, and it came out to $69.25. So remember, if you have a consulate that's a little bit further away, keep in mind the cost of airfare, the cost of hotels, the cost of renting a car, meals, all these things that might be included in needing to retrieve your visa. In cost, you have to remember where your consulate is, right? We just went over that. You need to think about your medical certificate. How complicated is it going to be to get your medical certificate? How much are the appointments? Are you insured? And other things like administrative factors. Depending on your consulate, how many documents do you need to notarize or translate? Do you need a rush service? Are you running up on deadlines? Are you starting the visa process late? What are the general fees for your money orders and postage and all that stuff as well? The student visa expenses are on the applicant. So unlike work visa where they sponsor their applicant, the student visa is paid completely by the person applying for it. This is an additional expense to be considered for moving abroad. I think the cost of my visa rivaled my flight over to Spain, actually. Also, crowdfunding works. So I tried Fund My Travel when I did my student visa, and I found it fairly intuitive. The only thing that I would say is GoFundMe is a bigger platform and has a little bit more visibility. Both of these websites are really good for crowdfunding for your travel abroad, especially if you have a great network that wants to support you. After you've considered all of the things before, so the requirements, your consulate, the cost, and the time involved, you'll receive your student visa. It should look something like this. It's going to be pasted into a page in your passport physically, and it will contain all of your information, the dates of validity from and to, whether it's multi-entry, the consulate that you got it from and a stamp from that consulate, your número de identidad de extranjero or NIE, and all of the other relevant information. Once you arrive in Spain, you'll have to extend the validity of your visa, so the validity of your estancia, by applying for temporary residency, which you'll do with the TIE, or the Tarjeta de Identidad de Extranjero. It's basically your identity card as a foreigner. Your visa is valid for 90 days. Your start date might be before your position starts or after. Totally okay. Once you get this card, you'll be good until the end of your appointment date. So here, my expiration date is December 28th. And then once I got the TA, my expiration date for estancia was June 30th of the following year, which was the last day of my contract. And just for the sake of showing you guys that it can be done, here's me taking a selfie outside of the Miami consulate with all of my paperwork finally together. It's a long process, but kind of rewarding just to know that you can do it. And thank you for watching this video. I hope it answered some questions about the visa process. Maybe you learned something new or something that you weren't aware of before. If you'd like to stay connected, my socials are nampahceitac. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/KatieChapman. There's also a resources for new auxiliares playlist that I've put on YouTube with all of the different documents that you'll have to look forward to when you finally move to Spain. And hopefully your transition to moving to Spain is going to be awesome and you'll be able to start your English teaching career super quickly. If you'd like to support what I do, keep other videos coming with more updates and more information, print out copies for in-person sessions. They can buy me a coffee so I can record these videos and edit them. So yeah, you can support me by sending a little tip to my Venmo or Cash App. I really appreciate you guys watching these videos. Let me know if you have any questions down below or if there's any other videos for auxiliares that you'd like to see in the future. Thanks and hasta luego!